Hey, here are a couple of questions. How does you touched on this, but how does poor sleep impact the brain?
Oh, it's just a disaster. When you sleep, your brain cleans and washes itself. It's
Okay.
actually fairly new research that the brain has its own fluid cleaning system that is basically closed off during the day. When you go to sleep at night, it opens up and it needs like 6.5, 7, 8 hours in order to fully restore the health of your brain. So if you're not sleeping well, or you're using alcohol to sleep, or using Ambien to sleep, it doesn't allow the proper cleaning. And we think things like Alzheimer's disease are because of a toxic buildup of proteins that weren't properly cleaned at night.
Oh, okay. That's an important concept, isn't it? What about another question? What impact does isolation have on the brain, if any?
It's huge. It's a major risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. And not to pick on anybody, but the government got an F for how they handled the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because not only did they scare us, they isolated us. And the negative impact is far greater than COVID. And I believe COVID hurts the brain. I have before and after COVID scans, but isolating particularly the elderly and children, was devastating and we've seen these mental health numbers skyrocket.
Yeah.
And it's just so sad what happened. And I hope people learn enough so they won't let it happen again.
Well, and you've touched on this, but the good news in what you're telling people in this webinar is you can make a decision to change your brain no matter where you are in the process by following these basic principles that you are outlining for us. There's hope.
Right. You're not stuck with the brain you have. I mean, I told stories of people in just a couple of months who were really bad to their brains. And in just a couple of months, their brains are radically better. And I told the story of Troy Gloss, which is public knowledge because he's on my Instagram show. And we're now a year later, and he's just a completely new person. And it doesn't mean you don't have bad days, but they don't live with you. It's not every day is a bad day.
Yeah. So the good news is, regardless of the absence of good decision making, you can start to make good decisions today, and you can change your brain, and you need to do that for your own sake. And like you said, the body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. So if the idea of loving yourself doesn't particularly resonate with you, then what about loving God and making the temple in which He dwells through His Spirit the one that is most highly usable by Him? That's a motivation too, wouldn't it be?
Absolutely. And it's our responsibility every day to the ones you love.
Yeah.
You are modeling health, or you're modeling illness.
Yeah.
And it's so important for children, because you and I both know children don't do what you tell them to do. They do what you do.
Yeah.
And if you're modeling health, they're much more likely to be healthy. There's a brand new study that just terrifies me. And 20% of children are overweight or obese, and they already saw brain damage. I published 3 studies that showed as your weight goes up, the size and function of your brain goes down almost in a linear fashion.
Huh.
And they're seeing that same damage in children. And that's just not fair. that through the bad habits of the parents, they're causing lasting damage in the kids' brains.
Yeah, and one of the great things you did for us in that first hour was you revealed your heart for your daughter. And you, you know, when she said no to the cookie and yes to the pepper, that brought a big smile to your face. So if you love your children, then modeling the right behaviors and caring for the brain and loving yourself enough to say no to the wrong things or the hurtful things that harm your brain, that's a great gift to them, and then they in turn turn around and become a great source of joy for you. That's amazing. That's a wonderful message.